tell them good about it here at KUHSdenver.com. Also visit us at www.magicfinancing.com.
Yes, check out magicfinancing.com. They are the best. If you want a new and used car, they'll be able to take care of you. Just tell them Charlie sent you. They are the host of the show here, The Council. We are The Council, broadcasting live to you here in beautiful Denver, Colorado. Broadcasting here in Denver, all across the nation, and all around the world, bringing you the best shows that we can possibly bring you here on the stream at KUHSdenver.com. Our listeners are listening from all over the globe in so many different countries. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Council every other week, every other Friday here, as we try to give you the best shows we possibly can to bring inspiration, hope, inspiration and healing to all of you out there in the vast world and the beautiful world that we have. We have some amazing personalities and DJs here at KUHS, giving you all kinds of live studio shows and information, education. Our mission is to bring quality programming that reflects the diversity of our staff and to have honest, grounded, authentic conversations about the many issues that we're confronting in our society. KUHS stands as a beacon of hope in a world filled with fear, distrust, and separation. We strive to bring our city, our nation, and our world together by providing a platform where we celebrate our commonalities, our goodness, our humanity. And we are streaming right now live. Welcome everybody to the Council. Today we're just kind of talking open-heartedly about a lot of different things that are going on. It seems that, boy, folks, we are dealing with a lot of stuff in our world right now, and it can be really difficult to kind of grasp and to put it in perspective and try to get it our heads wrapped around it, our hearts wrapped around it, and I think we're in a stage of helplessness, of helpless rage. We're angry, but we're helpless. We don't know what to do with it. We're suffering from a collective trauma as this year has so far unfolded, and I think a lot of us are questioning a lot of things in our lives. The goodness that we want and we crave so much seems to be absent. Things that are coming up to the surface that have been suppressed and held down for a long time. It makes it seem like we're in trouble. And in some regards we are, but I also think it gives us an opportunity as well to be able to find some common ground and to seek out higher truths and higher understandings to help us to navigate through these times in ways that when this time is over, we can look back at it and say, my goodness, we sure went through some tough times, but we're better for it, and we're stronger for it, and we're healthier for it. And it's hard to see it when you're in the middle of it. It's hard to get that larger perspective, that more symbolic perspective on life. But it is there, and we have to make efforts to be able to do that as best we can in our lives. Last night I had a co-host and I co-lead a beautiful group for veterans and healers of veterans. It's an online warriors gathering that we co-lead, and we had some very honest conversations about what happened on January 6th, the insurrection, and all the fallout that led to so many people feeling angry about it, frustrated. Vietnam veterans that were on there that said, quite frankly, this is not what I signed up for to do, and what I witnessed happening on there, and then the conversation also went to that among the people that stormed the Capitol that day, about 20% were veterans and active duty military, and others who have felt that their country was being taken from them. And I think one of the things that was revealed in our conversations, in our gathering, is the effort that is needed on all of us to become better listeners, and to not just because somebody has a different perspective doesn't mean we have to shame them. But we need to get to a level of truth and understanding that and run from the same reality. Otherwise, if we're operating on different realities, we're going to be assuming that things are different truths. And that is a big problem, and it is what we call, what it has become to my attention, it's a live action response program. And this is something that's been going on for some time now in regards to our technology. And I encourage all of you who are listening to this, when you get a chance, to go on the Netflix and watch a film called The Social Dilemma. It's about how all the things that played into the development of our iPhones and iPads and Pinterest and Instagram and Facebook and all the things that went into how to be able to capture our attention, and the algorithms that go into that to be able to manipulate our desires, to keep us attached and driven towards these things. I mean, it's driven by our attention, our cravings, our susceptibilities, and what we like and what we don't like. And if we hit the like button, that gives an indication that they'll be able to process that somehow, and it goes into this information background. We've got these people, these organizations, these companies, the government has all this information on us, and it's based upon this algorithmic technology, this live action response programs. And so if we're susceptible to conspiracy theories, like the crazy QAnon crap, you'll get more of it. You'll get more of it. Should take you down that rabbit hole, and you'll get further and further and further away from the truth. And it'll take hold of your mind. It'll grab a hold of your mind, and you become caught in their world. You're no longer living an independent life anymore. It's you're at the mercy of whatever that next hit is. It connects to our places of addiction in our brains, where we become addicted to these things. What's the next? What's the next move? And they control you. You don't control yourself anymore. You don't control your thoughts. You don't control your feelings, your emotions, and you think you're in on this secret cabal that knows more than everybody else. And that's a dangerous place to be in anything. It makes you vulnerable to being manipulated. It makes you vulnerable to being used by other people who are controlling this whole chaos. The whole chaos, getting everybody to get upset with one another, to pit American against American. You can have disagreements. You can have that, but you got to start with a foundational truth that we both agree on. This is what it is, and there has to be a need, a desire, a commitment by people to want to speak truthfully, and not to want the world to be a different way, to see it as it is, not as you wish it would be. You can't make the changes you want to make the changes in the world if you continue to try to ignore what really is, what the truth is, what the reality is. And this problem it's been brewing for a long time, and we've known about it, and we've kind of sensed it. We kind of have been worried about it, and now that it's really bubbled up to the surface, and we see things that we don't want to see. We want it to go away, but it ain't going away. And we're going to have to be able to have these honest conversations and wonder why we've gotten to this point, and not allow other people to control our thoughts, to control us by these algorithms that keep our attention from what's really happening. And if you're susceptible to those things, you've got to be honest with yourself about it. I certainly have found myself looking at my phone and wondering and knowing what I'm drawn to, and What's wild is that I'll be on it and I'll see something and I'll check something on my Google, and suddenly that very thing that I was looking at is now showed up on my Facebook feed or my Twitter feed. How did they know that? How did they know that I was looking at that stuff? And so we've got to get to a place and understanding of virtue, of goodness, of honesty, of sincerity, of giving your word and keeping your word, of evidence and facts, not trying to change and alter them in order to fit our narrative. It's like people want to keep these blinders on from the world, and I'm only going to see what I want to see, and if I see something that I don't like, it doesn't exist, and I'm going to smash it, and I'm going to push it away, I'm going to keep it away from me. It doesn't, and then if anybody comes in, then I got to shame them, I got to discredit them, I got to devalue them, I got to make them an other, somebody different. What they have to say is of no value. Their experience. It's a bigger problem, and it requires diving deep and healing the war within our own soul. We have to get into our own soul. We can't. Nothing outside of you is doing anything to you. It's what's going on inside of you. There is a higher angel, there is a lower angel, or demon, whatever you want to call it. There's a conflict that's going on the inside of you, from your belief systems, from your the way you were raised in the culture, the systems that are in place that let one group of people or keep some people oppressed and let other peoples have the benefits, rather than having everybody have equal opportunity to be able to achieve and go after their dreams and their families. And so it's going to require really diving deep into what some of the ancients talked about in the study of the soul. Psychotherapy. It wasn't about, in ancient times, it wasn't about your mental faculties, although it was a part of it, but it wasn't the focal. Psyche means in Greek, it means your soul. Therapeia in Greek means attendant. So basically how it translates is an attendant to the soul. That's what it was. You were an attendant to the soul. You were to help that person to heal their maladies, heal their illnesses, help them to whatever disturbances that might be happening in their mind was also happening in their souls, and moving that and doing all these things to get them into a state of balance and equanimity and integrity, and confronting the lies that are out there. We have been bombarded culturally, societal, from all angles by lies. Our institutions, our organizations have just been like pumping out lies to people. And I think that's why so many of us feel this helpless rage. Like we don't even know where to look at anymore. We don't even know, it's coming from all sides, all sides. And it breaks my heart to witness members of my own family get caught up on, I have family members on the right, I have family members on the left, I tend to lean center left, and it breaks my heart to see all these things that are going on and how easy it is, and how people that I adore and cherish and love, it's like you can see the problems that you could see their mind. It's like a poison has got their mind, like a virus. It's got their mind, and it won't let go. And you get them to tap into their conscience. You get them to tap into that part of them that knows right from wrong. You get that, and that usually happens instantaneously. It happens the moment. It's so quick. It's so fast. It's so quiet. It's right there in front of you. and we don't listen to it. But it's probably more in alignment with your soul and your connection to God and the divine and life and the universe and all that than anything else. And we know right from wrong instantaneously. We know it, but then we choose not to do it. Our mind comes in and it starts to reshape and reformulate or reorder the things that we know are true because we don't want it to be. We want it to be another way. We want it to be different. And we can't change it. We can't make the changes that we need in this world if we can see things as they are, not as what we want them to be. Because then we can make it. Then we can see what needs to be done. But if two sides are battling each other for what is true and what is not, our collective soul is at war with itself, and we need to heal within ourselves the war going on within. And I think we need to connect to things that are, that people are doing good in this world. There's a lot of good happening in this world that a lot of times people don't talk about or don't focus so much on. And being neutral has its gifts and has its disadvantages as well. Because with being respectful and acknowledging all perspectives, I can see things and hear things, and I'm able to understand people in ways that a lot of people can't because they've moved into their positions. They've gone into their camps. And as I continue to work on this in my own practice, in my own mind, I know that somehow we have to find a way to coexist. We have to find a way to be able to live together. It's not like, okay, it's just, one group's idea of how to conduct life and in governance is the only way, and the other way has no good ideas, and vice versa. It's not like people who are more conservative minded are going to live in just red states, and people that are more liberal minded are going to live in just blue states. It's not going to work that way. It's all the ingredients for implosion. Every civilization that has risen and fallen has had internal dynamics that bring it down. You go from the ancient Egyptians to the ancient Greeks, the Peloponnesian War with Athens and Sparta, the same thing. Athens collapsed from the inside. The Roman Empire, a vast empire that expanded, and then it started to factionalize. And power, money, greed, all the things that our spiritual traditions warn us about take root, and they destroy us from within. We fractionalize. The emperors, they turned into the Western Empire and the Eastern Empire as they battled for control and dominion, and they would usurp, and demagogues would rise. That it was no longer about the republic; it was about their own grandiosity, their own megalomania, their own, it was just about them. And so this happens to great civilizations, and we are witnessing it right now before us as we begin to factionalize even more so. And as far as I don't know if any civilization over the course of history has ever come back out of it, has ever been able to come out of that normal process that occurs with the rise and fall of civilizations, and to come out of that cycle of the fall and to renew itself. I think we have an opportunity to do that if enough of us can see it. If enough of us are able to stay in that place of neutrality with the intent of bringing people together and moving forward and not getting caught and pulled apart by the forces that are trying to pull us apart. And they are. And they're working hard, and they're working overtime. And, it's, so you got to get deep into what's true for you, what's right for you, what's good for you. What is goodness? What does that look like? What does goodness look like? How do you know? How do you know a good person? What are their traits like? Do you know it instantly? Or is it over time? What is goodness in you? What is goodness in you? I'll tell you one thing, if you're stuck in revenge or vengeance, that's the predator in you. That's the part of you that wants to destroy. And we all have it. Not just everybody does. And so, if you're acting from that place, if your choices and decisions and actions are rooted in vengeance, you're out to destroy. It's not about finding balance and equanimity for all. It's not about, making this a better place for everybody living on the planet. It's just about me winning and you losing. There are major things that we need to look at as a culture, as a society, as a nation, as a globe. We can't avoid it. We can push it off the more we want to, but, we'll catch up. And anytime you push away the things that are that are issues that you need to bring to light, it will always catch up. You cannot run away from you. And the same thing with a nation, the same thing with a world. And so what is goodness? What is the things that make, have you witnessed it in your life? An honest person. I've had some times that have broken my heart open. That I was coming from a very narrow-minded, selfish, narcissistic, it's all about me kind of a place, which is part and parcel of maturity, I think. It's part and parcel of growing up and becoming a functional and mature member of society. And we all go through that stage, and usually it's in adolescence. Sometimes it doesn't. We become. We miss that part of our development, and I think maybe for me that's kind of what happened. And so I was in a very wild stage of life, and I couldn't quite. I was morally injured from the work that I did in the military. I did not think what we did there with nuclear weapons and what we were doing with that was right. I did not want to blow up people. That just didn't make sense to me. It violated everything that I stood for as a human being. My conscience. Again, the conscience, the ability to act from our conscience. Can we really do that? Can we really do that? Or are we just, we say that, that's a society and a culture that we want, to be able to act from our conscience, but when somebody does, we shame them. We criticize them. We condemn them. So aren't we just hypocrites? Not allowing people to do what they know is right in their heart to do? Why wouldn't we celebrate that? Why wouldn't we raise people up like that? And maybe you disagree with them, but the act of acting from their conscience, we should celebrate, but we don't. We celebrate it after the fact, years after the fact. We people like Muhammad Ali, who didn't have any grievances with the Vietnamese people. He didn't want to go and fight. And he acted from out of a conscientious objector. And they stripped him of his titles. That wasn't right. They punished him for doing what was in his conscience to do. And of course, after time passed, we look back and we think, my gosh, what strength, what inner strength and courage that took to do that. So do we have the eyes to see real goodness? I don't know. I don't know. And I think it's, the things that broke my heart open and opened me up to the things that of the world that took me out of that closed-mindedness, that sense of the world evolves around me, which is a big problem in our society. I think is the sense that the world evolves around me. We haven't gotten out of our own narcissism to get into a place that, it's not just about me. The world doesn't just operate from I don't think something in the world all of a sudden changes because of me. No, it doesn't do that. I didn't want to watch that insurrection happen, but it did. I wanted to stop it, but it still happened. And so it's learning how to work with the laws of creation, and also understanding that what I do to you, I do to myself. What I do to you, if I add to the continuity of life, to the life moving forward, things tend to go better. And when I take away from it, things tend not to go so good. I mean, it's kind of a basic understanding of life. If I give more to others and I help others, then I feel better. And I'm making life better. But if it's all about me and me getting what I want, and I'm gonna make choices and decisions that are not reflective of what's the highest good for me or for all. It's just going to be what I think in the moment is going to satisfy my desires. It's going to satisfy my cravings. And I'm going to hurt people along the way. And I did. But I also broke open. And there was a couple, and I'd like to share a few of them with you today. And that broke my heart open. And I hope as I think about these and share these with you today, that you think about yours in your life, because we all have those moments where life is trying to break us open, to break our heart open, so that we can let more of life in, let more love in, let more compassion, let more goodness in. It breaks us out of our ego constructs. It breaks us out of our rigid belief systems where it's got to be my way, and it breaks us open in that way. And anyway, there was I have a number of stories, but one in 2001, I was in a wild stage of my life, and I was lost and confused and angry, and I had suffered from a lot of trauma, PTSD, moral injury, and I was seeking a period of escapism from the reality that I was in. I didn't want to deal with what had happened. I didn't understand really what had happened. But I was going out and partying, and I was out in the world, and I was traveling, and I was with a group called the World Party, and we traveled to Brazil, and we were there for the New Year's Eve celebration. And for my listeners who are tuning in for Brazil, I'm going to butcher this. I apologize, but it's the Réveillon celebration that they have at in Rio de Janeiro on Copacabana Beach. And it's a beautiful celebration. 1.5 million people go out on the Copacabana Beach on New Year's Eve. Everybody's clad in white and they're dressed in white, and all the people come from the hills and they're playing the music and they're dancing and celebrating, and they're throwing the lilies out into the ocean to ward off the evil spirits and to bring prosperity and goodness and health into the new year. So it's a beautiful celebration. And during that trip, we also were delivering presents to some of the children that were living in the barrios. And it was my first time really witnessing and seeing abject poverty. Like poverty that I had never seen before. And I would look, and we were driving down the highway, and we would look, and to my left, I remember on the left-hand side was Rio de Janeiro. Beautiful. I mean, one of the most beautiful places on planet Earth. And then on my right side was the barrios. And the people that lived in such, my God, like, we couldn't go in there. Such abject, horrible poverty. And we went towards the gate, to the gate to bring them, and the kids would come out, but we couldn't go in there because as a white man, I couldn't go in there. They would, a Western man, I couldn't go in there. And I was just, the disparity between the rich and the poor was in stark contrast that I had never seen before in my life. And it cracked me open a little bit. And I was like, this is wrong. This is horrible. How are people living like animals like this? How do we as a world allow this to happen? What is this? What started this? And it made me sick to my stomach. And what people had to do, especially women and others that had to leave their places in order to the work that they had to do in order to get ahead. And it made me sick. A lot of the people that worked in the fields there at the time, and this is back in 2001, they would had, if they worked in the fields and the farms, they'd work 12, 14, 16, 18 hours a day, 6 days a week. And they would make, in their money at the time, the equivalent of about $7 to $15 a month. A month. Made me sick. And it started to open my eyes. My heart broke there. It didn't take me out of my narcissism, but it started to break there. I had a lot of things to get me out of my own narcissism, but that was one of them. And it was significant, and it stayed with me, and I remember it, as a significant event that awoken me to that there are bigger problems in this world that I need to attend to. Another one was back in 2005, and I worked for an organization called the United States International Mission. And we were out trying to bring attention to and help to eradicate the child sex slave trade that was going on in Southeast Asia. I think it continues to go on. It's a crime against humanity. It makes me so angry about the things they do. And that's why I get so upset about this QAnon shit. Because the people like I was working with who are doing the right work and are trying to help those girls and those children and get them out of that are being, the good that they're doing is being hijacked by these Looney Tunes. And so I was working with that, and I was trying to raise money to help build orphanages for the children as well, so that they could, for the Hmong children, to help them have schooling, to take them out of their villages and to be able to, have a chance at life. And when I got there to Thailand, I flew to Thailand and Taiwan, South Korea, and the Saipan Islands. We were using Saipan Islands, which was American territory from World War II, or after World War II. And there were some schools there, or properties there, that we were using for schools in order to bring the girls over there once we rescued them to learn some of these skill sets. And I remember being, when I first landed there, and I had my translator, and we met with this general who was going to help to provide security for us as we would go down into the border of Thailand and Cambodia. And unfortunately, just the year that I landed there, or the time of the year that I landed there, there was flooding. The whole plateau right there was flooded. All the roads were flooded. We couldn't get down to the border there. And what would happen is that a lot of the times, these poor Cambodians and Vietnamese, what would end up happening is these human traffickers would pay these poor people, promising that their children would be going to America, as an example, to get an education, to get an opportunity, and so they would, because the parents didn't have anything to give their daughters or their sons, they would exchange it under the promise that their children would be given an opportunity, and then they'd go into these prostitution rings, and it was appalling. And while we were sitting there with the general, there was some girls that had escaped from their traffickers, and they were hiding in one of these areas. These people that were there to help, to protect them. And my translator just gave me the phone, and he says, "Listen to these, to talk to them." And I said, I don't know Vietnamese. I can't speak. He's just, listen to them, just hear it. And I remember putting trying to talk and saying hello to them, and just the fear in their voice, and that there was nothing we could do at that time. We couldn't get down to them. And the translator told me that what they said to me was they thanked us for trying to help. But we couldn't help. And broke my heart open. And then we arrived in the village. We went up to Chiang Mai, and Chiang Mai was where the Hmong villages are from at. And then we went up there, and we were helping this pastor who was working. He was also Hmong. He was kind of a celebrity in the Chiang Mai, which is in northern Thailand, to a lot of the Hmong villages, and he was trying to help build this orphanage to bring about 60 orphans to this school. And most of the Hmong parents were not very educated. They lived in very very primitive conditions, very primitive places, and so he took me up there to go see some of the places and some of the children that were going to be a part of this orphanage. A little background: at the time, the drug trafficking trade that was going on between Burma and Thailand and other places they were recruiting a lot of the Hmong parents, fathers, to do this work, and then it was decimating the population. A lot of them were going into jail. A lot of them were getting killed, becoming drug addicts. I mean, terrible things. And so that's why there were so many children that were orphans. And so we went up there, and the villages, there were really like these conglomeration of these bamboo huts with these corrugated tin and thatched roofs. There was timber that leaned on the sides, the clotheslines that they would have that would lift up the clothes off of the ground. There was roosters that crowed incessantly, chickens that ran around, and children that were holding babies and peering out. And most of the time we were very bashful. They didn't, I think maybe a lot of them didn't know and had never seen a white man before, a Westerner before. And one of the pastors, he took me into this room where this child was at, and he was a 9-year-old kid. His name was Song Chi. He lost his parents. His grandma was looking after him, and he was a very small child. And all his life he lacked nutrition and medical care, and because he was an orphan and his grandma was very poor, it was a very, very desperate situation. And this grandma we would just stare out and just look longingly. And here there was just this dilapidated place, and he was so terrified of me too. And I just like, oh my gosh, I had never witnessed ever in my life such abject poverty. And there was, plastic bowls and food and musty. There was an odorous stench of mud and ash and wood and rotting food and unwashed bodies. I mean, it was in the air. And I stood back and scanned, and I always think back to my own childhood and how lucky and how fortunate we are. And I just desperately wanted to hold on and give this kid a hug, but he didn't want to, and it just left a huge impression on my mind about the poverty and the injustices that exist in the world, and that very often guys like me, Americans like me, didn't know until I actually saw it with my own eyes. And so it changed me. And there was another kid that was there, and his name, let me see here if I can find it. His name was Ying. And when I walked into this village, again, we walked into the hut, and there was this mud floors, platform where all the families slept, the grandma, the grandpa, the mom, the children, and they had a fishing net that came from the ceiling to the platform where they slept, all of them. And there was just a rug that kept them up from the wood platform, and it was raised. Mud floor all around. A pot where they cooked all of their food, and again, a table where their food was hanging up off the ground so the animals and the insects wouldn't get it. And this bitter odor of spoiled food, of feces, of things that we take for granted, the cleanliness, it infected or took over my olfactory sense, and I was overwhelmed by it. And they just walked around in these ragged clothes and no shoes and dirt all over their faces, and these kids were eating scraps. They were eating scraps. And there was the youngest, there was 3 children, and they were all around this little bowl of food. And there was a youngest girl, and she was just a little toddler. She was cheerful as cheerful could be. She just had a little shirt on and no bottoms, and she was running around, and it was happy as happy could be because she was surrounded by love. And dirt and mucus all over her face, but she was laughing and smiling and running around. And to her, she didn't know any different. She was just a little girl, but she was surrounded by people who gave her everything. You know, food, shelter, clothing, water, love. And she was still too innocent to really understand. But the Ying, the boy that I came to see, the 9-year-old, he suffered from malnourishment. And he was sad. There was a sadness. He was very small. He was very sad. And he was extremely malnourished. And he needed milk and food to rebuild his body and a balanced diet so that he could grow up healthy. And this wave of sadness and self-pity too, and pity and guilt and all those things, all those emotions came over me. And he was just humped over his food. Remember, they're all squatting down, and there's no chair. They're all squatting down over this bowl, eating this food. And they were humped over their food like a dog a bowl, and just eating the scraps out of this bowl, and my heart just wept. And one of the things that was asked of me was to be able to take pictures so that I could use that as part of my report that would go back in order to get the funds for this orphanage. And this amazing thing happened. I know I was kind of prepping this whole story for this event that broke my heart open. And I go there to take this picture with this boy, with Ying. And as I approached him, and as I'm squatting down to get to him, he does this amazing thing. I look down at him, and I'm thinking he's looking at the camera, but he looks at me, and instinctually, selflessly, this little boy scoops up a bowl of his rice, not for him, but for me. This boy fed me. This boy who had nothing fed a man who had everything. It was instinctual. It was unprompted. It was deep from within his being, his understanding. It was this particular act was such an act of generosity and genuineness, altruism. And it really let me witness what it means to be a part of this world. That it's in the act of giving that we truly connect to our humanity. And not just in giving money, and that's all important in the things, but he acted in a manner that is universal across all situations, circumstances, events, or times in history. His unselfishness, Ying's, as when he fed me, was not merely an act of charity or kindness. It was a principle of action. He gave what little he had, despite his condition, because his concern was about my welfare and not his own. And that's the goodness that we've got to see in the world. They've got to look and find that's available to us. You don't have to travel overseas. I was fortunate. I was very lucky to be able to have these opportunities to do that. And I have one more that I want to share before we close. And I was fortunate. I've been lucky, very lucky in that way to be able to see that. And it broke my heart open, and it made me realize, my goodness, I've been a pretty selfish man. can't see the world the same way that I saw it once before. And it began a long, slow process of transformation and transition for me, and it continues even today. But you got to find the goodness like that in your world, in your communities, in your homes, in your families, watching your children, watching your nieces, your nephews, your cousins, your friends' children. See the goodness that is there. Cultivate it, grab it, recognize it, praise it, reinforce it, encourage it, elevate it, give it prominence. We've got to give our prominence to the good things that people do in this world, not to the negative things, because people know how to do that, how to manipulate you by the dark things that we're capable of doing. We've got to cultivate that virtue that was so innate, that was right there in that child, in that moment. What he did was a gift for all of us, for all of you who are listening to this show today. It was a ripple effect. So what breaks your heart? Open so that you can love more. The last one that I want to share quickly with you happened a couple of years ago when I went to Lebanon. I had this opportunity, brief but short, but incredible too, to help with the people that were struggling from the Iraq war, war in Syria with ISIS and the things that were happening there. And we went there to help the refugees that were coming in from Iraq and Syria, and it was a Christian group, and they're wonderful people. If they're tuning in and they're listening, I cherish those times. And we were doing some good work to help them, and there was we were trying to help to bring some medical supplies, food, equipment to help these refugees that were coming in, and to know that people cared about them. And again, I was filming and being the spokesperson to help people back here in the United States to support the mission. And we walked into this one woman's home, and she had fled Iraq, and she had two horribly disfigured sons, and a daughter who helped her to care for them. And the grace in this woman was otherworldly. She didn't complain about what she had. She just wanted some help to support them, to take care of them, but she had such strength. And of course, in that part of the world, it's Jesus, it's Islam, it's Muhammad, it's those the Judeo-Christian foundation. But there's a strength, and I've seen this strength when I was in Thailand and Buddhism and in India. I haven't been there, but I know that it's there in India as well. This immense strength, this transcendent strength, and I witnessed it with this woman. And I was like, wow, what is that? It's a mystical strength. It's a mystical power that is no human being can manufacture that. You cannot pretend that. You have either embraced it, cultivated, endured it. I think it comes from endurance. I think it comes from a deep spiritual understanding that sufferings happen, that no life is exempt from suffering, that like what we're all experiencing now, it's a major suffering that we're going through. And I think it's this endurance, this acceptance of what is, not wanting it to be different, but a willingness to accept this is what God gave me. And I'm going to do the very best I can to get through this. And there was a joy about her too. That was, well, where did that come from? And I was just humbled by it. Because I didn't have that. But at least I was able to see through the eyes of my soul, to see it and recognize it. And know that if one person can have that, we all can. We all have that. We get to choose, though. We get to choose whether we want to have that kind of depth of faith and courage and strength and endurance that comes with that lifting your suffering to a greater power than yourself, or not. And I learned a lot. My heart broke open again. And so I hope you take away from this show today some stories that can lift you up and lift your spirits during this time, to give you strength, to give you hope, to give you a sense that we can all get through this together, and that allow your heart to be broken open in a way that allows more love to come in. All right, folks. Thank you so much for tuning into the council today. I want to thank KUHS, KUHSdenver.com. We are the stream, broadcasting live here in Denver, Colorado, to not only all across this great, beautiful, wonderful nation, but all around the world as well. We're being listened to on 6 continents by so many people. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Henry, for all that you do in the back there and keeping this, making it so seamless and making the magic happen. And for everybody here at KUHS, thank you. We will be back next month. Tune into the council for some amazing guests as we continue to give you truth, to give you a sense, a place where you can call home. All right, folks, thank you. The council is adjourned. May you all be well. May you all be free of pain and suffering. May you all be whole. God bless everyone. We'll see you soon.